Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the 12th house in astrology. Now, first off, as far as what the 12th house rules and governs, it is associated with restrictions, limitations, secret sorrows, one's self-undoing. Could be those things that give us those figurative self-inflicted wounds, so to speak. An aunt, an uncle, even. What's hidden in our life, what we don't want to be unveiled or divulged to others, things that we really keep very private and hidden and concealed. Also to hidden adversaries and even imprisonment and mental illness. Now, and also the paranormal, if that is something that you actually believe in. And it also includes solitude and seclusion. Now, the first thing off is, as far as delineating your 12th house in your chart, look at the sign that is on the cusp of the 12th house. That will give some description to matters pertaining to your 12th house. It can give certain attitudes that are associated with it. It could even describe some people that are associated with the 12th house, such as hidden adversaries, or even an aunt or an uncle. The thing about this is, and this is something or it could even be people that might be figuring prominently in your private life or your secret sorrows. Now, mine is in Aries, so of course that can manifest in a multitude of ways. It shows, for me, that perhaps impulsive behavior can be oneself undoing. It could be mean the fact that the 12th house rules are restrictions and limitations. It can be manifest with me as far as lack of aggression and assertiveness and confrontational ability at times. It's also something where another way that could be that it could pan out with me is that I might be very aggressive and assertive in matters with solitude and seclusion, or show a lot of bravery, fortitude, and courage in helping those that are less fortunate. The 12th house can also be associated with those less fortunate than ourselves, such as the hungry, the oppressed, the impoverished, and the homeless. This is how it can describe matters with those people. Now, another thing that this is, when you look at the 12th house in astrology, it's also important to see if there's any, if the house inhabits any planets, because of course that will flavor the house. Now, I have Saturn in Taurus in my 12th house. Now, when you have Saturn in the 12th house, sometimes it could actually indicate that older people, even grandparents, might be hidden enemies or hidden adversaries. It can reflect or anybody that's in some kind of you could say Saturn field, such as like politicians or people in government or business. It can also be another thing too, is that when we look at this as well, having Saturn in the 12th house can give secluded habits. I'm everything but reclusive. I would say a lot of my sorrow, it could indicate a lot of my sorrows are dealt with privately, and I don't really try not to show any despondency toward anybody publicly, if you understand what I'm saying. And it could also, when you're talking about the Saturn can also represent the father. And when you have Saturn in the 12th house, it often manifests in either a limited situation, relationship with the father, or the father may dissipate out of a person's life at a younger age. And my father passed away due to Hodgkin's disease when I was 3 years old. Now, it could also, the fact that I have Saturn in Taurus in the 12th house could also show a lot of laborious and persistent efforts in solitude and seclusion, and I do believe that really resonates very strongly with me. Now, another thing to look at in this, when you're talking about the 12th house in astrology, see if there are any aspects that are made to the house cusp, or even planets that might be inside the 12th house in your chart. Now, I thought what's interesting is that I have my Uranus in my 6th house make a very tight opposition to my 12th house cusp. Now, when you're talking about aspects in astrology, these are about relationships between one astrological proponent to another. Now, with mine, the fact that you're talking about 6th and 12th house energy, it shows that the working part of me, and maybe you could say the solitude, the private side, is in opposition to each other. But another thing, how I look at this, the fact that Uranus is very, the fact that my Uranus is very, it's very close to my 6th house cusp, and it makes the opposition to the 12th house cusp. The Uranus can also be about friendships and your close, your friendships, and even people that are just in some groups or some clubs or organization. That tells me that being in opposition, that could possibly be in my daily routine. The fact that it's conjunct my 6th house cusp, the fact that it also makes the opposition to the 12th house cusp shows that the energy is adversarial to my to what I want to do in private, in solitude and seclusion. So it shows that there is obviously like a perpetual tug of war going on with that energy, and trying to show also Uranus on the 6th house cusp could also indicate trying to show some kind of selflessness in the daily routine, which of course could involve helping others, but at the same time opposing the 12th house cusp. It means that the privacy is opposing that, and it's adversarial to it, matters in solitude and seclusion. So anyway, now another thing is it's also important to look and see the house ruler of the 12th house and see what house that falls in. Now, my ruler of my 12th house is Mars. It falls in my 3rd house in my natal chart. When you're talking about house rulers in astrology, it's basically the energy coming from house A. You're depositing that, you're bringing that into house B. So what it is, in my case, the fact that my ruler Mars of my 12th house falls in my 3rd house could show that I'm bringing my secret sorrows, matters of self-undoing into my communications. And also, too, it can sometimes cause some kind of restrictions with siblings. And interestingly enough, I don't have any brothers or siblings. I have Mars in the 3rd house. Mars is the planet that can be, it's combative. It's basically, sometimes Mars in the 3rd house, I believe, can manifest in no brothers or sisters, because it's adversarial. It's combating the energy, whatever house it might be in. Now, another thing too is that I could be bringing matters with the metaphysical, which could include astrology in my day-to-day routine. I've even brought books or material connected with astrology in my short journeys when I be riding the bus. So that's like bringing that energy from the 12th house into the 3rd. But anyway, now another thing to look at too is that transits to the 12th house can be significant, as they can manifest in spontaneous and unanticipated, unexpected events. Now at this point in time, I have transit Uranus in Taurus in my 12th house. Now that could be, of course, that's another thing that can manifest in a multitude of ways. This could be about, maybe there's some idiosyncratic behavior I'm showing that might be misconstrued as something else, as maybe having some other kind of issues, if you understand what I'm saying. It could be, it could also be having bizarre dreams or having disruptions to my sleep, which is actually happening fairly frequently. And it could also indicate that Uranus people can be hidden adversaries. It could be fellow, whether it might be astrologers or people in some Uranus field, which might be connected with innovation or computers, electronics, aerospace. There's just a lot of ways that this could manifest and pan out. Hold on a moment, people. And I might also feel, since this is the house of restrictions, that my freedom and independence might be inhibited at this point in time. Sometimes it could be dealing with unusual paranormal activity, if that's something you actually believe in. It can also be an unusual need for solitude and seclusion, which might be maybe mind-boggling to other people. But on a positive end, this shows ability to do things on an astrological level in solitude and seclusion by myself in privacy. So anyway, well, last but not least, progressions are important as well. They could, and that involve the 12th house, because that could manifest in certain issues, as situations that might be transpiring in one's life, though on average they would be more protracted and prolonged, because progressions on average are going to last longer than transits. But the thing about it is, let's say, for example, you got in your progressed chart, you have Pluto making an adverse aspect to your 12th house cusp. Now, that could manifest in a number of ways. That could be trying to deal with crisis issues, may conflict with your private life, and maybe dealing, some death might be more difficult for you to handle, and that might be something that that's maybe it's tied into a limitation, or you trying to move forward. You might be at the same time as well. Pluto is about power and control, and it might be difficulty in trying to gain power over people that might be hidden adversaries, or people that it could also be matters of power and control in your own private life, and in solitude and seclusion, or if you even have a mental illness, trying to gain some control and power over that kind of over that as well. And Pluto can also be upheavals. Upheavals might be, you might be dealing with some upheavals that might be conflicting with you trying to focus on matters, just your general limitations and restrictions of trying to work your way out of them. So those are a number of things that could manifest. So anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.